In another reality of Earth within the vast multiverse, a man named Caesar was born with an unbelievable gift. He could stop time itself. With just a thought, he could heal anything, whether a broken skyscraper, a crumbling bridge, or even his own body torn apart beyond repair. He was not only blessed with this power, but also had the mind of a genius architect, a man who reshaped the city with his vision. But even with such greatness, Caesar was not happy. He stood on the tallest tower in his city, New Rome, ready to throw himself off and end it all. His heart was heavy, his mind broken. Just as he leaned forward to fall, he instinctively stopped time. The world froze, silent and motionless. In that stillness, something shifted inside him. He pulled himself back to safety. He chose to live, but he was far from free. New Rome was a city ruled by the wealthy. The rich owned everything: the tall towers, the shining markets, the government itself. The poor were pushed to the far edges, living like shadows, working endless hours just to survive. Caesar could rebuild walls and heal steel, but he couldn't yet heal the sickness of this society. At the same time, across the city, the mayor Cicero sat in his lavish home, reading the morning paper. His hands shook with anger. A local press had dared to publish not only scandals about his wealth, but also something far worse. Photos of his daughter Julia, taken secretly at a grand party, had been spread everywhere. The shame burned him, and rage twisted his face. Julia, unaware of her father's fury, was on her way home. Her car stopped suddenly. The road ahead was blocked. Caesar and his crew were demolishing an old unsafe tower. As always, Caesar froze time to ensure no worker or passerby was left in danger. But then something strange happened. In the frozen stillness, one figure moved freely: Julia. She blinked, looked around, and realized she was unaffected. She could walk, breathe, and move while the entire world stood still. Caesar noticed her, but didn't understand why his powers had no effect on her. Julia, just as shocked, kept silent, and when time resumed, she quietly left. Caesar's name only grew brighter with time. His work, his genius, and his mysterious power made him a figure of legend. He was awarded the Nobel Prize, and his fame spread across the world. But with fame came envy. Mayor Cicero, already bitter, now saw Caesar as his greatest threat. Caesar's growing influence meant Cicero's control and his future election hopes were slipping away. That night, all the rich people of New Rome gathered at the place where Caesar had demolished the building. A small party was arranged there, and a reporter named Wow was showing it live on the news. The wealthy had come together to decide what should be built on that land, a place for their own pleasure. Caesar's uncle, Hamilton, was also at the party. He was a powerful banker and had brought along his son, Claudio, who was still immature and was acting strangely in front of everyone. When all the guests had arrived, Cicero, the mayor, made an announcement. He said that a grand casino would soon be built on that spot. Most of the rich people clapped and cheered at the idea, but Caesar was furious. He stood up and opposed Cicero's plan. He explained that instead of a casino, the land should be used to build homes for the poor who lived on the edges of the city. He also spoke about the new metal he had discovered, called magalosis, which allowed him to create anything just by thinking. With it, he dreamed of demolishing not only this one building, but rebuilding the entire city so that the poor could finally live with dignity. Cicero, however, refused to listen. He laughed at Caesar's dream and said such a thing was impossible. Caesar argued back, saying all he needed was financial support from the rich and approval from the government. Then he could easily rebuild the city. But Cicero only insulted him further. He even brought up Caesar's late wife, who had once poisoned herself and whose body was never found. Hearing this, Caesar lost control. His anger was so strong that Cicero had to call security guards to keep him back. Reporters quickly tried to capture the heated fight, but Julia, Cicero's daughter, rushed to block them, making sure no photos would embarrass her father. Still, deep inside, Julia blamed Caesar for the entire scene. From that night on, she decided she would take her revenge on him. Later that night, when Caesar reached his home, he found Wow waiting for him. She was not just a reporter, she was secretly in a relationship with him. Wow wanted their love to be made public, so no one could ever tear them apart. That night, she even proposed to Caesar, asking him to marry her. But Caesar, still broken by the memory of his late wife, could not accept. He often saw visions of her, as if she still lived in his mind. The grief had not left him. So he refused Wow's proposal and walked out of the house, putting on his coat. Wow was left standing there, heartbroken. Shaken, she turned on the TV. Her own interview with Hamilton, Caesar's uncle, was playing. As she watched, she realized something she had ignored before. Hamilton had been flirting with her several times during the interview, but she had never paid attention to him. The next morning, Julia arrived at Caesar's office. She came not to talk, but to insult him on behalf of her father. Inside, she noticed dozens of empty liquor bottles scattered around. From this, she understood that Caesar was in deep pain, struggling with grief and unstable in his mind. Still, Julia demanded that he publicly apologize to Cicero in the media. Caesar refused without hesitation. Enraged, Julia threatened him. If he didn't apologize, she would expose his greatest secret, his ability to stop time. Caesar was stunned. No one else had ever confronted him about this before. With no other choice, he decided to show her the truth. He led Julia into a private room where he kept his secret experiments. Inside were machines and tools built from Magalo technology. Standing in the center, Caesar closed his eyes and began to imagine a new city. Slowly, before Julia's eyes, a living image of that city started forming in the air. Streets, towers, and homes rising out of his thoughts. Julia was astonished. For the first time, she saw that Caesar's dream was real. He wanted to build a city where rich and poor could live with equal dignity. Something inside her shifted. She decided to support him. That very day, she went to her father, Cicero, who was leading a parade by the beach. Julia begged him to give Caesar the official approval letter for his project. Cicero, however, was shocked and furious to hear that his daughter was siding with his enemy. As he scolded her harshly, their parade was suddenly halted. Caesar's car was passing through the same road, forcing the mayor's men to stop. Cicero's anger only grew. He ignored Julia completely, refusing to even consider her request. But Julia's curiosity had only deepened. She began digging into the truth of Caesar's past. Soon she discovered chilling details about his wife. The records said she had taken an overdose of insulin, then driven her car into a river. But when the police pulled the car out, her body had mysteriously vanished during the investigation. The more Julia learned, the more she was drawn to Caesar. She didn't know why, but something in her heart had begun to follow him. One night, Caesar bought flowers from a poor man's shop and went near an old building. Julia secretly followed him and stopped outside. Inside the building, Caesar had set up hologram projectors that showed him the last visions of his wife. Watching them, he became very emotional. Julia, too, was stunned. She could not believe that a man could still love his dead wife so deeply. The next day, Julia met Caesar again. This time, he took her to the tallest building in the city. From the top, he carefully observed the whole city. He explained that when he rebuilt New Rome into Utopia, he needed to know exactly where each new building would stand. Julia asked him what was most important for him to save in Utopia. Caesar answered easily. He wanted to build a place where people could live happily and never suffer the same kind of pain in marriage that he had faced. Weeks passed, and during this time, Wow herself got into a relationship with Hamilton, Caesar's uncle. At their engagement party, Caesar also arrived with Julia. During the party, he gifted a model named Vesta, a beautiful dress made of Magalo. To everyone's amazement, Vesta used the dress to make herself invisible, and the guests clapped in excitement. The party was full of fun and entertainment, and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. But not all people supported Caesar's vision of Utopia. Some guests at the party were openly against his plan and protested. Caesar tried to ignore them, but inside he felt disturbed. Upset, he went to the club area and began drinking and smoking heavily, while Julia quietly watched him from a distance. Later, Vesta was supposed to perform on stage. She began her performance, speaking wise and thoughtful words. But backstage, Claudio handed the producer a pen drive and asked him to play it on the projector. As soon as the video started, intimate photos of Caesar and Vesta appeared on the big screen in front of everyone. The crowd was shocked and furious. They turned against Vesta, forcing security guards to rush in and remove her for her safety. But the anger of the audience only grew stronger. This time, they went straight for Caesar. The crowd attacked him, and in the chaos, one man punched him hard in the face. Caesar fell unconscious. Julia, who had been following him closely, ran to his side. Fearing for his life, she quickly put Caesar into her car and tried to drive him away. But before they could escape, a large group of policemen surrounded the car. They arrested Caesar on the spot. It turned out that Vesta was a minor, and Caesar was accused of committing a crime with her. In prison, Caesar's suffering grew worse. He realized with shock that he had lost his greatest gift, his ability to stop time. Without it, he felt completely powerless. He tried to explain to the police that the photos and videos were fake, but no one believed him. Julia was determined to free Caesar at any cost. With the help of a friend, she secretly entered the city archives, where the records of every citizen were kept. After searching for a while, she found documents about Vesta, that proved she was not actually a minor. Julia quickly made a copy of the papers and went straight to her father, Cicero, demanding that he release Caesar. But Cicero hated Caesar so much that he would rather die than help him. He tore the papers in front of Julia's eyes. Furious, Julia stormed out. Next, she went to meet Hamilton, since he was both rich and powerful and had influence in the city's decisions. On her way, she ran into Wow, who tried to stop her. Wow didn't want Julia to meet Hamilton at all because deep inside she was jealous. Caesar was spending more and more time with Julia instead of her. Meanwhile, inside Hamilton's room, his son Claudio was begging to be made a member of the family bank. But Hamilton refused. He knew Claudio had been the one who spread the fake videos of Caesar, and he also knew Claudio was still far too immature to handle such responsibility. Hamilton didn't openly support Caesar in public, but deep down he believed Caesar was very capable. Claudio, however, burned with jealousy whenever Caesar's name came up. Julia never got the chance to speak with Hamilton that day, but soon after, a forensic report came out. It revealed that the videos of Caesar and Vesta were completely fake, created using holograms. With this proof, Caesar was released from prison with honor. Even though he was free, Caesar felt broken. He had lost his power to stop time, and while the court cleared his name, the damage was already done. His reputation had collapsed in the eyes of the people. The next day, Caesar went to the tallest building to sit quietly. Julia came to him and started a conversation. During their talk, Caesar admitted that he had lost his power. He also confessed something painful, that he blamed himself for his wife's death. On the night she injected herself with insulin, he was not at home, and he carried that guilt in his heart. Julia comforted him by holding his hand. In that moment, Caesar suddenly felt his power return. Both of them were overjoyed, and Caesar kissed Julia. With Julia by his side, his life began to feel brighter. People often say that having the right partner can change everything, and for Caesar, Julia became that perfect partner. Over the next few weeks, Caesar focused on his work while also enjoying his time with Julia. One day, he even introduced her to his mother, but Julia was shocked to see how cruel his mother was. She treated Caesar harshly, almost like he was worthless. Seeing this, Julia realized how lonely Caesar truly was. She understood why he kept his pain buried and never shared it with anyone. To lift his spirits, she spent more time with him, and their bond grew even closer. They even began using Caesar's powers to enjoy intimate moments together. Meanwhile, Claudio was still full of jealousy and anger. He turned the poor people, those Caesar wanted to help, against him. Because of Claudio's lies, the poor began protesting against Caesar's construction projects. Around the same time, Cicero received terrible news. A Soviet satellite was falling from space and heading straight toward New Rome. There was no way to stop it. The area was quickly evacuated, and soon the satellite crashed, destroying a huge part of the city. For Caesar, this tragedy became an opportunity. The destruction gave him space to rebuild according to his own vision. He threw himself into his work, creating new designs, determined to turn his imagined city into reality. Then one day while they were together, Julia told Caesar she was pregnant. Caesar was overjoyed and immediately proposed marriage. But Julia refused gently. She explained that Caesar was still tied to the memories of his late wife. Until he fully moved on from his past, she did not want to marry. She wanted to start their new life on fresh ground, free from old pain. Caesar understood, and he agreed to wait. After some time, Caesar and Julia built a large house for themselves using Magaleno. Julia then invited her parents, Cicero and his wife, for lunch. Cicero did not like Caesar at all, but for his daughter's sake, he agreed to come. At the dining table, Caesar and Cicero were about to get into a debate when Julia suddenly announced that she was pregnant. Julia's mother was overjoyed at the news, but Cicero was shocked. He did not say anything, though, and quietly finished his meal before leaving. The next day, Cicero called Caesar to his office. During their meeting, Cicero revealed the truth about Caesar's wife. He told Caesar that she had fallen into depression because Caesar was always busy with his work and never gave her enough time. In that loneliness, she eventually committed suicide. But then Cicero went further. He admitted that he himself had supplied the insulin injections to Caesar's wife, and after her death, he arranged for her body to disappear so that no one would ever suspect him. Cicero told Caesar all this because he wanted to break Caesar and Julia apart. In exchange, he offered Caesar a deal. If Caesar left Julia, Cicero would confess everything publicly and also give him the approval letter to rebuild the city as he wished. Caesar was furious after hearing the truth, but Julia meant more to him than anything else. For that reason, he refused Cicero's deal and stormed out of the office. On his way back, Wow came to meet him. She still wanted a secret relationship with Caesar and promised to secretly give him money from Hamilton's wealth. But Caesar rejected her offer without hesitation and walked away with confidence. Insulted and furious, Wow swore to destroy him. Using her access to Hamilton's resources, she secretly blocked all of Caesar's bank accounts. Slowly, Caesar began to sink back into depression. Meanwhile, Claudio also wanted Caesar's downfall. When he saw the conflict between Wow and Caesar, he decided to use it as his chance. One night, Claudio sent a young child, pretending to be a fan of Caesar. The boy approached Caesar and asked for his autograph. But as Caesar signed, the child suddenly pulled out a gun and shot him in the face. Caesar collapsed, gravely injured, and was left fighting for his life. Luckily, Julia was there when Caesar was shot. She quickly called an ambulance and managed to rush him to the hospital. Caesar's brain was still active, but he kept seeing strange visions as he drifted in and out of consciousness. The doctors decided to perform a very risky surgery, one with almost no chance of survival. At Caesar's request, they also used Magellan metal during the operation. By some miracle, the surgery was successful. Caesar survived, but his body and spirit were completely broken. In those dark days, Julia never left his side. She kept motivating him, giving him strength to hold on. Even then, Caesar continued seeing visions of his late wife. Finally, he confessed to Julia that he truly loved his wife deeply, and that on the night she injected herself with insulin, he had been working on a major discovery. His research was completed that very night, but when he returned home, it was too late. His wife had already injected herself and gone out. Caesar also told Julia that the insulin had been supplied to his wife by Cicero himself. Hearing this, Julia was furious. Now she understood why Caesar hated Cicero so much. She also realized why Caesar had created Magellano. He wanted to ensure that in the future, even in terrible accidents, people's lives could be saved. After some time, when Caesar was finally strong enough to walk, he went to confront Wow. He threatened her harshly for what she had done to him. Just then, Hamilton arrived. When he learned about Wow's betrayal, he immediately reactivated Caesar's bank accounts and angrily scolded Wow. But instead of regret, Wow's anger grew. She secretly got close to Claudio, and together they plotted revenge against both Caesar and Hamilton. With Claudio's help, Wow tricked Hamilton into signing away his rights to the bank. They then removed him from the board of members completely. When Hamilton discovered the fraud, the shock caused him to suffer a stroke, leaving him temporarily paralyzed. Meanwhile, Caesar recovered fully, and Julia gave birth to a baby girl. To celebrate their new beginning, Caesar and Julia got married in a private ceremony, known only to a few. But Claudio and Wow were not done. Now they set their sights on Cicero's power. They stirred up the poor people against him, filling their minds with anger. Soon, mobs of poor citizens attacked Cicero's house. Afraid for his life, Cicero decided to take his whole family and flee the city. He refused to take Caesar with him, because the poor hated Caesar even more than they hated Cicero. Julia, realizing their daughter's life was in danger, decided to leave Caesar temporarily to keep her safe. With a heavy heart, Caesar agreed. So Cicero gathered his family and began his escape from the city, using the hidden paths of an underground train. On the other side of the city, Claudio and Wow went to meet Hamilton. To their surprise, Hamilton was dressed like the Cour from Cholet. As Wow walked closer, mocking him, Hamilton suddenly lifted her shawl, revealing that he was holding a bow. Without hesitation, he released an arrow and killed Wow instantly. The very next moment, he turned his aim toward Claudio. Terrified, Claudio barely managed to escape with his life and ran outside. Once free, Claudio again began provoking the poor people, trying to turn them against Caesar. But Hamilton had already made his move. He called his assistant and ordered him to invest all his wealth into Caesar's project. Soon, Caesar received the approval he had long been waiting for. Overjoyed, he stood before the people and shared his dream of Utopia, a city where everyone would have equal rights, where no one would be seen as rich or poor, and where every person could live with dignity. The poor listened, stunned. They realized then that Claudio had deceived them and used their innocence for his own revenge. Furious, they turned on Claudio, attacked him brutally, and finally hung him upside down. A few days later, peace returned to New Rome. Caesar began executing his grand plan. By New Year's Eve, the entire city had been rebuilt according to his vision. That night, during the celebration, Caesar enjoyed the festival with Julia, their daughter, and even his mother, who had finally come to see him, filling him with happiness. As the clock struck midnight, Caesar stopped time and kissed Julia, wishing her a happy new year. But in that frozen world, both he and Julia were stunned to see something new. Their daughter could also move freely, unaffected by his power. Realizing this, they both smiled with joy.